Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for November 7th, 2023. It is 9:30 in the morning. Let's begin this morning with the invocation from Pastor Bob Asawardi from Emmanuel Baptist Church. Please rise. Pastor, good morning.
Dear God, we thank you this morning for the beautiful place that you've given us to live, and even this beautiful building and these people who have met here today just to take care of some business, some mundane, some exciting and thrilling. But everything that we do, we understand, and as we begin this meeting and begin this day, we certainly want to acknowledge your hand and your providence and your wisdom and your guidance in everything we do. And we want to give our thanks, first of all, to everything that you have given us here, and for protecting us and for guiding us through some literal and other storms that we've had to face. And I just also want to ask you and invoke your blessings today and your guidance and your wisdom. And we may not all have the exact same situations and interests, and maybe we do have some differences that will need to be worked out, but we do have a common need for you, and we know that we have a common love that has been given to us by you. And I just thank you for the love and the unity and the spirit that Lee County represents. And as these men and women do their jobs today, I pray that you'd help us all to be good citizens and to be yielded to our God. And we just thank you again for the loveliness of this day, and we look forward to seeing what you'll do as we yield to your leading today. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Well, we would like to begin this morning with a very special presentation from the American Red Cross. It's the National Life Saving Award. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Jill Palmer from the American Red Cross to come to the podium and present the award.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jill Palmer, Executive Director for the American Red Cross Florida Gulf Coast to Heartland Chapter. Thank you to Chairman Hammond and Commissioners for having us here today. We are excited to be able to present an American Red Cross Life-Saving Award to Lee County Park Ranger Chad Roy. Since 1911, the American Red Cross Life-Saving Awards have recognized those who in an emergency use their life-saving skills or knowledge to save or sustain a life. The Certificate of Extraordinary Personal Action is bestowed upon individuals who embody the spirit of the Red Cross by using action to help alleviate human suffering in the face of an emergency. Emergencies can happen at any time, in the grocery store, at a family gathering, at the community pool, in your home, or even in the mangroves of Southwest Florida. On July 17th, Ranger Roy responded to a radio call from a Lee County deputy regarding an ongoing search for a missing 79-year-old man behind the Publix on Pine Island Road. The sheriff's office had exhausted their search by air with canines and ground units when they asked Ranger Roy to assist with his ATV. Ranger Roy met with local authorities and deputies to get a description and started searching through the swampy mangrove area on his ATV. After an hour and a half, Ranger Roy noticed foot tracks in a matted down grassy area at the edge of the mangroves. As he continued his search by foot into the mangroves, he spotted a man lying in the mud and sticks. Ranger Roy proceeded to hydrate the gentleman as he guided the sheriff's drone unit and the Matlacha fire rescue crew to the area to transport the gentleman to the hospital. The gentleman had been missing since 8 p.m. the night before and most likely would not have survived another night in the condition that he was in. The actions of Ranger Roy demonstrated the highest degree of concern of one human being for another who is in distress. The Red Cross has awarded over 2,466 individuals with life-saving awards, resulting in more than 1,255 lives saved. Ranger Roy, for your devotion to duty, I would like to recognize and honor you with the American Red Cross National Life-Saving Award for your extraordinary personal action. You are now among a very special few that have received this award. Congratulations.
make us proud, would you share a few words?
Stay on the other side.
Yeah, just on the other, perfect.
Okay.
So I'll say, actually,
I'd like to thank the American Red Cross, Jill with the American Red Cross, and Corey Kovaci for recognizing, some of the stuff that we do. I'd also like to thank the Board of County Commissioners and Lee County Parks and Recreation for providing us the ability and the assets and, the opportunities to be able to just give back to the community the way that we're all trained and that we want to. So thank you very much. And thanks again for Jill and the American Red Cross. Thank you again.
thank you, Ranger Roy. Tell you the cool thing about Ranger Roy too, if you ever meet him while you're out fishing and you're having a rough day, he'll give you a few tips. He helped out a commissioner one day who was just on the Matlacha Bridge, no idea what I was doing, but took good care of me, so thanks.
Did you catch anything?
I still didn't catch anything, but I had a lot better chance with his help, that's
Bet
for sure.
Jacob did, though.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations again, Ranger Roy. At this time, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Pendergrass for National Injury Prevention Day.
Great, thank you very much. And I'd like to ask Dr. Marie Alfaro, Cindy, come up here, Tracy Thornton, Christine Jordan from Lee Health. Everybody come forward, please, to read the resolution. I'd like to recognize every year what we do here in Lee County is trauma prevention. If you all just stand here at the podium, I'll read the resolution, then usually City speaks or Michael's here too, so Michael, thanks for being here. Great. Thank you. The resolution reads, whereas National Injury Prevention Day will be observed on November 18th, 2023. The annual designation raises awareness about the significance of injury and advocates for injury awareness and prevention in Southwest Florida. Whereas Southwest Florida is vested in preventing injuries and violence as the leading cause of death and disability for people ages 1 to 44. Whereas Southwest Florida is working to establish a safe and injury-free environment in and around Southwest Florida, as trauma injuries recently contributed over 3,690 hospital visits in Lee County alone, January 1st to September 30th. Whereas hospitals, state agencies, community organizations are committed to a critical role of reducing injuries and death by promoting safe practices. Whereas National Injury Prevention Day raises awareness to promote efforts in preventing injuries among all age groups. Lee Health Trauma Galveston Children's Hospital is working with law enforcement agencies, local fire departments, emergency medical services, and many other agencies in the business community throughout Lee County and beyond to work to prevent all residents and visitors from injuries. Now therefore resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida, proclaims that November 18, 2023 shall be known as National Injury Prevention Day, signed by our chairman to this day. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Come on, you've done this a few times, so we'll get a picture. Or who's speaking? Thank you. Who would like to speak?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all.
So despite, all the medical advances we've achieved over time, and despite us being so lucky to have a trauma center in our region and expediting the care of these injured patients, unfortunately, we do get a significant portion of patients that are not salvageable, by the time they come to us. So that's why it's so important to raise awareness about preventing injury. That's the way to help those, especially the children that are so innocent and, riding cars and whatnot with their family members. And that's a role where it's not just the physician or the surgeon like myself who can help these patients, but it's all of us, and reminding each other to use the car seats, use the seat belts, to drive, not being distracted. So I think it's very important, and I thank you for giving us this opportunity to have this day to remind everybody and raise awareness.
Great. Thank you again, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Pendergrass. At this time, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Greenwell for the Farm City Week.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. I'll call out a few names and come on up to the podium if you're here. Representing FGCU Center of Agribusiness is Dr. Fritz Roca, Center Director, Matt Caldwell, Center Advisory Committee, Ron Hamill, FGCU Agribusiness Consultant. And representing Lee County Farm Bureau is Ricky Pritchett, President, and Andy Newhofer, Farm Bureau Regional Director. If you're here, come on up. Yeah,
you're perfect.
I'll read the resolution, and then we'll come up and get a picture, and then someone can say a few words.
A lot of history there, Mike.
Yes, a lot of history here, absolutely. So, as a person that owns agritourism business, I respect everything you guys do, for sure. The Board of County Commissioners resolution, whereas November 22nd through 29th is National Farm City Week, a time to set aside and recognize and honor the contributions of the country's agriculturalists and to strengthen the bond between urban and rural citizens. And whereas in Southwest Florida's 5-county region, including Charlotte, Collier, Glades, Henry, and Lee counties, the agriculture and natural resources industries contribute nearly $8 billion annually to Southwest Florida's economy. And whereas over 40% of the land in the 5-county region is in agriculture, totaling over 1.3 million acres, and as whereas this agriculture land mass contributes immensely to the region's water recharge and the wildlife habitat, and the region's farmers, growers, and ranchers have been good stewards of the land for generations. And whereas the University of Florida Institute for Food and Agriculture Sciences and Florida Gulf Coast University Center for Agribusiness provides valuable information and educational support for the region's agriculture industries and residents alike. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida proclaims November the 7th as Farm City Week in Lee County and encourages all citizens to pause and recognize the contributions of our local farmers, farm workers, growers, and ranchers to our economy, our food supply, and our society, duly executed this 7th day of November 2023. And thank you. I'll come on up and get a picture.
My pleasure.
Perfect. Who wants to say a few
Who
words?
would like to say a few words? All right. Thank you, guys. Yes, sir, I'm going to give this to you. Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Greenwell, Ricky Pritchett here from Lee County Farm Bureau, and I just want to say thank you for helping us, both Farm Bureau and FGCU, raise awareness to the importance of agriculture in Lee County. A smaller, declining industry in Lee County, but certainly an important one. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the Center Director of Florida Gulf Coast University Center for Agribusiness, Dr. Fritz Roca, say a couple words.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for taking the time to recognize agriculture, especially in this area. I've had the pleasure of being in this area for 26, almost 27 years. First chunk was with the University of Florida in Immokalee, and no, without any disrespect to Fort Myers, I always viewed Immokalee as the center of the universe. For all the issues that relate to ag, that's important there in that area. But this whole region is an important part of agriculture to Southwest Florida. And it's a pleasure to be here to be part of FGCU, an emerging agribusiness, and to help convey the message that agriculture is alive and strong, and as it has evolved in the past, it continues to evolve in the future to bigger and better things, both for the food production, food safety, as well as for the environment and for the well-being of all the people in our greater area. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you all for coming today. Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Greenwell. And thank you all very much for celebrating those awesome accomplishments today with us. All right, at this time, we'll move to the recap on the agenda. This is where we talk about additions or deletions that need to be made to the agenda. The first item that's been requested by procurement is to defer item C33 to the December 5th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move the item.
Motion to make that deferral from Commissioner Pendergrass and the seconds from Commissioner Ruane. At this time, would anybody like to speak in public comment on just deferring item C33? Okay, I see no public comment, so we'll come back to the board. Is there any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, under revisions and corrections, Transportation has requested that we revise item A8 to include funding for the Matlacha corridor. So a new agenda item report has been turned out that has the corrected amounts for the Matlacha corridor on that. And then County Administration is also requesting that we, on item C19, correct the current year dollar amount. So do we have a motion to make those revisions? Motion from Commissioner Ruane and the seconds from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any public comment on just the revisions and corrections at this time? We'll take up the items for a vote in just a few minutes. Okay, I see no comments on the revisions and corrections. Is there any discussion by the board? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. And then finally, on the recap, we have 2 walk-on items that have been brought by our county manager's office. I want to take the walk-on item related to the, well, let's do the strategic planning session first, and then we'll talk about one of the major accomplishments that came out of the strategic planning session after that. So, Mr. Harner, please introduce the item related to the strategic planning direction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to approve the FY 23-24 strategic planning direction. I'd like to ask Mr. Winton to give details about the item.
Commissioners, this is for your formal approval of your direction at your strategic planning workshop last Wednesday. And you see there, that is the slide that John Streetmeyer put together that you all saw at the end of the meeting after you all had made adjustments to what you wanted to see in the coming year and years. Also, the board had requested that we come back with a recommended spending cap as we develop budgets during the budget process. This is more of a formal process than we've used in the past. And so what we're recommending is that we come to the board no later than April with a proposed spending cap that would be based on the latest state revenue estimating conference for like property tax revenues, their estimates, internal forecasts, as well as any other relevant data. And then we would ask the board for formal approval of that percentage. The board could give us direction as to, we think you're being too conservative or too aggressive. Then we would promulgate that to the constitutionals as well as our internal departments in order to make sure that as we draft our budgets and submit them, that it is within that spending cap. And then after that, after July 1st, then the board can have a discussion as to whether, if there's additional money or if we have to make adjustments down. Excellent.
Commissioners, any questions for our staff on this item at all? The only question I would ask real quick, and maybe Mr. Harner or Pete, whichever, the conversation with the constitutionals. We have a couple of them here, by the way, our clerk, Kevin Carnes, and our property appraiser, Matt Caldwell. Thank you both for joining us today. Just to kind of get out ahead of it so that the communication's good. I mean, that's really the key to solving anything. Talk to them that, hey, this is the conversation we're going to have in April. We're going to talk about what on the front end, what budget increases or increased in spending cap might look like. We're going to talk about that before you guys start building your budgets. How do we have that conversation? Has there been any movement on that yet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, we were waiting until after today's vote, but the other part of the discussion was to have the chair involved in that discussion as well. Okay. So as soon as this is taken care of and approved, we'll start scheduling those meetings with the chair as well.
Yeah, okay, good deal. Well, then after today's meeting, whoever's chair, sure hope he'll, no, I'm kidding. We know he'll work on that, so that'll be great. Good, thanks. I think that's a great conversation to have. And basically, it's nothing different. It's just saying on the front end, here's what we expect to make in new revenue next year, and then here's how much we should budget for. That's it, not just setting a budget without having a target to shoot for, so. Good deal. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, at this time, I'd like to call for public comment on the strategic planning direction walk-on item. Has anybody come to speak in public comment on this today? Okay, I see no public comment, so we'll come back to the board. Do we have a motion to approve this? Item. Motion from Commissioner Wayne, seconds from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any discussion on this? Do we have any objections to it? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. All right, and then Mr. Harner, please introduce the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve a request for 22 new positions and 2 new ambulances for EMS, and I'd like to ask Mrs. Brady to address the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. As mentioned earlier, this is a direct result of your conversation, your workshop that occurred at November 1st, in which you discussed looking at overtime, our current overtime, and utilizing that to add additional resources for our emergency management services. This agenda item is requesting the approval of 20 additional EMS positions, 2 supervisory positions, and that would have a net cost of about $400,000. The rest of that cost would be reduced by the overtime savings. We also discussed the addition of 2 vehicles. So we're asking for authorization to purchase that, but we will bring back another agenda item with the specific details of those 2 vehicles. We did discuss 8 communication positions to be reviewed after the first of the year, once we've had an opportunity to look at what the financials look like after the first of the calendar year. And then you also asked us to bring back a long-term plan for a workshop in the spring to discuss a long-term plan for emergency medical services here at the county.
Commissioners, Commissioner Pendergrass?
I have a question. Dave, I think in the workshop I asked about this question. Could we add those 8 new positions now to this agenda item instead of waiting until after the first of the year?
Yes, we can, if that's the board's direction, yes.
Do we have the financing for those positions currently now? I think it was like around 500,000.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this with the 8 positions starting now instead of after the first of the year.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any more questions or discussion on that? Commissioner?
Just one comment. I backed on my garage this morning, and one of our EMS trucks was attending to one of my neighbors 2 buildings down. And so I stopped to say, well, make sure everything is all right. And I'm always impressed, not only with the technical support that we give them, but the protocol and the personal touch that they bring to the table. So just wanted to add that this morning. Very timely.
Grateful for our public safety. Commissioner Pendergrass, you're
My
right.
motivation with the 8 positions are, we've seen what we're spending over time now, but this is one of the most important services we provide to Lee County. And it's one thing, I'd rather have the truck sitting in the garage waiting for a call than having a resident waiting on a trauma call. We just recognized trauma a few minutes ago, waiting for emergencies and waiting for an ambulance. So that's why I think it's really important we staff these positions sooner than later.
Any further comments or questions before we move to public comment?
I think this is going to address the issues that we have some areas of the county and other cities which has some shortages. This is going to address all that, so the overtime trucks will go away then, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, to a degree. We will still have overtime, but yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner Pendergrass. Okay, at this time, we'll move to public comment. We do have the Mayor of Cape Coral who has come to speak in public comment on this. So, Mayor, I'd like to recognize you, and then afterwards, we'll have Fire Chief Ryan Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is a topic that I know I've been engaged in over the last year here with the county and with Commissioner Ruane. You know, our city is probably one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Florida. You know, we're exceeding a population of 220,000 people now. And I can tell you that our EMS, our fire and our police services is a #1 priority, just like it is for you. And some of the things that we've done over the last 5 years, we've increased our fire department by over 30%, which equates to 66 new positions. Our police department, 55 new positions because of our growth. As we all know, when it comes to EMS, it's not minutes, it's seconds that counts. So we want to make sure that we're prepared. We do recognize there is a deficiency in our city, and I commend staff. I know our staff has been working with the county staff to identify our needs, and I appreciate recognizing our needs in our city and bringing this topic forward here today. But that's not only just in the city of Cape Coral, that's in Lee County as a whole. So I'm glad to see that the commission's moving forward. We want to be a participating partner with the county. We've already offered some suggestions as far as opening up our firehouses to help accommodate these additional units that hopefully we will get. One last thing that I do want to mention, and an issue that we have had in our city, is we are looking for dedicated EMS personnel and ambulances in our city. A lot of times, you know, if it's, say, a patient that has to go to Gulf Coast, that ambulance may go there and respond to needs in other areas of the county versus the city, we may not see that ambulance for the remainder of the day. So that's another concern that we have, to make sure that we get dedicated ambulances for our city. So I appreciate your efforts. We're willing to work with you even further, and thank you for your decision here today.
Thank you, Mayor Gunter. Appreciate your comments today. Chief Ryan Lamb, and then after that, we'll have Henry Garcia.
Good morning, County Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm here to support the addition of the 22 additional EMS positions and 2 additional ambulances. Fundamentally, the Cape Coral Fire Department and EMS share the same noble duty of caring for the ill and injured in our community in their times of greatest need. The City of Cape Coral has a long history of working with Lee County to help provide these emergency services. And I can tell you truly that the men and women of the Cape Coral Fire Department and of Lee County EMS are hardworking and passionate about caring for those in need. But there's a large and ever-growing need for these important services. And it's important that we grow together. One of the things that the city is doing to take an effort in providing what we can in this effort is working through an interlocal agreement for the lease option for ambulances to stay in our fire stations, and doing that at no increased cost of that revenue or that increased costs. Those dollars could be applied to helping improve service levels for our entire county. On behalf of the Cape Coral City Manager, Michael Ilchison, we are grateful for our working relationship with the county, especially County Manager Harner, and we're thankful for your consideration in this important matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, I'd like to call Henry Garcia.
Good morning, members of the board. I want to thank you guys. Thank Mr. Harner, Christine Brady for the addition to the budget of these new positions. It goes a long way in helping the staffing issues that we have at Lee County EMS and addressing the growth. So thank you guys for having the foresight in adding these positions. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Are there any further comments on this walk-on item related to the EMS positions? Okay, I see no further comments, so we'll come back to the board. We have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass and the seconds from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any further discussion? Commissioner Sandelli?
Just a comment. I was in the meeting yesterday with about workforce, and when we talk about these positions, they are essential services. So I can't think of a better profession, or one of the better professions, to encourage young people today to consider this. It's a great path. There's great purpose in that. So I would ask everybody here and the people that you know to encourage the next generation to step in and fill some of these needs that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandelli. Commissioner Ruane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate all of us talking last week. This was a great conversation. I look forward to the workshop in the spring where we have an opportunity to look at this, and I can't thank both the chief and the mayor enough for being here. It's important that we continue to do and recognize what's needed in Lee County, and that we're proactive in making sure we are in front of the curve as opposed to behind the curve. But thank you, gentlemen. It's been an honor.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Chairman, if I may, yeah, you know, I really want to thank staff for getting this in front of us before the need was too great, and for the board for realizing that these positions need to be done right away. Not only in Cape Coral growing, but East Fort Myers is growing too, and we need them out there as well. Very, very thin on it out there. So just very happy with the board and with the staff for moving this forward, and I think it's really great for our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Greenwell. And, you know, at this time, I would just share that I think Mayor Gunter's comments really summed up what we talked about at the strategic planning session, that this is a response to the growing community and making sure that we provide the same quality level of service that people are accustomed to here in Lee County as the area continues to grow. And so I thank you very much for the solution that you all put forward here, and look forward to seeing it be approved today as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections to the motion? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. And that concludes the walk-on items for today. So let's go ahead and move into the consent agenda. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any items that you'd like to pull for discussion?
I do not.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
None.
I have none. Commissioner Sandelli?
None.
Commissioner Ruane? Okay, so no items have been pulled for discussion from the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is the first 50 items on the agenda. We have 2 public comment cards that include consent agenda items. So at this time, I'll call Marcia Ellis, and then after that, William Joe Schottmiller.
Good morning, Commissioners. Marcia Ellis for the record. I'm speaking on Agenda Item 44, which is the award contract for design services for the Lee Hendry Landfill Ash Monofill side slope closure. And my comments are building on comments I made a couple of weeks ago in regard to the dioxin and furon leak at the waste to energy facility that resulted in a fine. And now I'm following up with additional concerns about the state of our solid waste management facilities in the county, as it's bearing an unusual burden with the amount of trash that's rolling through our community post-Hurricane Ian, and an increase in the demand for the amount of processing that Covanta facility is undertaking. I see that we have about $1 million set forward to work to contain the fly ash. And the fly ash is quite toxic. I've done just cursory research, and I'm not really speaking from an expert position here, but from my conversation with FDP at the ETO meeting the other night, I understand that the fly ash is diluted and then it's taken out to this landfill. I'm also going to say that we are entering a rulemaking period for waste to energy plants. And when I review the analysis and the policy issues on the agenda item, I don't really see any reference to what may be rulemaking that could alter perhaps what happens with the precautions that are going into containing this toxin-loaded ash in the future. Nor do I see it connecting back to the dioxin and the furon leak or the increased demand in the recovery process. So I'm just calling out these issues because I do think that we have an obligation to look at both the pros and cons in the way that we manage our solid waste, and be realistic about the burden of urbanization going forward that we have now and into the future, so that we can best project how to protect the life, health, safety, and wellness of our community with strong regulatory protections. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is William Joe Schottmiller.
Morning, Commissioners. I noticed on Article 24 about the HUD funding for the homeless, and that I would like to ask that this funding, working together with all the powers that be here, that we set up some type of emergency housing, affordable. We could take FEMA trailers, we can use some of the old trailer sites. I went to a meeting Saturday with the Women's League of Voters, and they had some speakers there. And about having some rezoning and utilizing what is out there, vacant sites that are just sitting that could be utilized. So let's work together to get people up the street. And I know we're building apartments, but where are people going to stay until those apartments are built? So I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, does anybody else wish to speak in public comment on any of the items that are on the consent agenda, the first 1 through 50? I see no more speakers, so we'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion on the balance of the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda. Commissioner Greenwell seconds it. The motion was from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any discussion on this? Any further discussion? All right, I see no further discussion. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. At this time, we'll move into the administrative agenda. Mr. Harner, would you please introduce item number 1?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 1 is to approve purchases of equipment and supplies for the Lee County Civic Center, and I'd like to ask Mrs. Brady to address the item.
Good morning again, Commissioners. This item is based on the direction that the board provided to us on October 17th to take the necessary actions to bring the operations out at the Civic Center up to up to the standards that we would need in order to ensure day-to-day operations to preserve the 4-H program as well as planned events. What we're asking here for today is to be able to purchase equipment and supplies not to exceed $500,000, to waive the procurement process so we can expedite the purchase of the equipment, and to authorize the county manager or designee to execute the necessary documents to finalize that procurement process.
Any questions for our staff at this time, commissioners? Okay, I see no questions. At this time, does somebody wish to make a motion? Motion for approval from Commissioner Sandelli, second from Commissioner Greenwell. Do we have anybody who would like to speak in public comment on this item?
Yes. Thank you. Marcia Ellis for the record. I am speaking in regard to this item because this is the second waiver of procurement that has happened in dealing with the Civic Center takeover by the county. I have an issue with the fact that we're waiving the procurement process in a fire sale type of setting and questioning the timing when we have so much to do in this county, when we have people literally showing up here every meeting asking for some sort of immediate action on the housing crisis, when we have thousands and thousands of people who are waiting for some assistance on the voucher program. Instead, we're waiving procurement and we're making the Civic Center takeover a priority, when I really would prefer that we deal with the crisis, the true crisis in our community, with the housing situation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments on this item? Okay, I see no more public comments, so we'll come back to the board. Any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Pendergrass, you're recognized.
The Civic Center, it's never been a takeover. The Civic Center has always been Lee County property for the last 55 years, so it's just a change of organization of that, so it's not a takeover, but this has nothing to do with FEMA housing, so I support the item.
Okay, great. Any further comment? Okay, thank you for your comments, Commissioner Pendergrass. At this time, I'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Please introduce item number 2, Mr. Harner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next set items are under hurricane recovery items, and number 2 is to approve amendment to the lease with the University of Florida for property on Pine Island Road, and I'd like to ask Mr. Clemens to address the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robert Clemens, County Lands. This is a request to amend the lease agreement between Lee County and the University of Florida. We were in agreement where the University of Florida was managing this particular site. This lease amendment will carve out the post office area, and Lee County will take over the post office building. As part of this deal, we'll be receiving about $102,000 from the University of Florida from insurance proceeds due to hurricane damage to the building, and Lee County will manage that rebuild of the structure. And then from there, we are in negotiations with U.S. Postal Service once the building has been refurbished to put them back into place again. Any questions?
Any questions, commissioners, on this? No? Well, just one question. Just do you have an estimated time frame on receiving the insurance proceeds and actually making the repairs and getting the agreement back to restore the post office?
We're working on the contract with the post office now, the lease agreement. The proceeds, once this is approved, we'll be working with the University of Florida to get those proceeds back, or get those proceeds in here, and then we'll have to go through the process of rehabbing the building. An exact time frame, we don't have that. This is a historical building, so we have to stay within guidance of rehabbing it to that standard.
Good deal. Do you expect the insurance proceeds to cover the total cost, or will there be other costs?
They should cover the total cost.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Any further questions, commissioners? All right, I see no further questions on that. Thank you, Mr. Clemens. At this time, I'd like to call for public comment on this item, item number 2 on the administrative agenda. Anybody wish to speak on that? Okay, I see no public comment, so we'll come back to the commissioners.
I'll move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Wayne, second from Commissioner Greenwell. Do we have any discussion on that, commissioners? Okay, I see no discussion. Are there any objections? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Please introduce item number 3, Mr. Harner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to accept Florida Department of Emergency Management Hurricane Ian and Nicole Repair and Recovery Grant. I'd like to ask Mr. Winton to address the item.
Commissioners, this is to formally accept the a $100 million loan the county received from the state legislature through its legislative appropriations program, which was approved in this last legislative session. This is for cash flow for the county's expenses related to rebuild from Hurricane Ian, and then also we're receiving $7 million grant for the town of Fort Myers Beach to install lighting that's sea turtle compliant on Estero Boulevard. What this does is this is formally accepting those funds and then giving authorization to the county manager to sign the grant agreement when it is finalized, and then to make sure we get that funding to the town of Fort Myers Beach.
Commissioners, do we have any questions on this item for our staff? Okay, I see no questions. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on item number 3 on the administrative agenda? Okay, I see no public comment. We'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
I would, and first and foremost, I'll make the motion, but I'd like to obviously thank the Department of Emergency Management. Kevin Guthrie has obviously helped us a great deal, and cash flow has really been impacted by this storm. So once again, can't thank the state enough and their leadership in coming up with the cash flow that's necessary not only for this community, but for other communities within Lee County. So I'm gladly moving that item.
Okay, so we have the motion for approval from Commissioner Wayne, the seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Do you have any comments, Commissioner Sandelli?
No, the package is really complete. I do want to thank all the work that went into the lighting on Fort Myers Beach, the sensitivity to the turtle population, but lighting in general, because of the loss of the ambient light, because of the devastation down there, is extremely important.
Excellent, thanks, Commissioner. Any further comments? All right, are there any objections to the motion? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Harner, please introduce item number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to authorize public comment period for proposed CDBGDR action plan amendments, and I'd like to ask Mr. Sire to address the item.
Commissioners, we are asking for the authorization the county manager just outlined. We are seeking it in advance of final approval of the action plan that's been submitted. We're doing this because as soon as we get that approval, we'd like to publish those proposed amendments for public comment so as to keep the process moving as fast as possible. The amendments are outlined in the agenda item. They are largely some cleanup language, some clarifications. There are some substantive items like increasing the amount of subsidy per affordable housing unit that would be allowed, as well as I would like to point out in particular that a couple of weeks ago the state increased the amount of hazard mitigation grant program funding that will be available to projects within Lee County by almost $100 million. And that does increase the 25% local match that we're trying to provide through the DR program. So one of the amendments will be to reallocate that funding so that we can fully cover the match.
Commissioners, any questions for our staff on this one? Okay, I see no questions. At this time, we'll turn to the public. Do we have a comment? Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Marsha Ellis for the record, speaking on item 4, the authorize the public comment period. I do understand that this item is going to be open for a 30-day comment period, and there are several things that I'm really concerned about here. For one thing, I understand, and I've had some conversations with others, knowledgeable folks, about the increase from the $200,000 to the $250,000 that are needed to subsidize the individual units on affordable housing. So I understand the logic there, but the reality is that reduces the numbers from 1,750 people down to 1,400, and so that's a reduction in the number of people who are being served. And again, as Mr. Schobmeyer, excuse me, I apologize if I'm not hitting his name right, that reduces the number of people that are potentially being served when we're in an acute crisis. I also have a comment regarding the reduction of the mortgage. That seems like a pretty substantial change to go from a 20-year not having interest added on that to changing it from years 6 to 20. So that, again, that's putting more burden on the people who are qualifying for this, as well as removing the requirement for the rental properties that to not have been occupied by renters at the time of the storm could remove from priority some of the people that were directly impacted, because the language, I think, was pretty clear in the original document. Also have concerned because I find the language too open regarding the voluntary residential buyout to allow flexibility. I think absolutely what is being purchased should remain as open space, green space, so that the community is benefiting from the flood mitigation from this acquired property, so we can get more mangroves in there, more things that are softening the blow for our existing community members in the direct vicinity. So I think that I'm not really comfortable with the flexibility. I think this is an opportunity to put some clarity into that particular bulleted point. And again, that we're talking about from the voluntary residential program with the raising the numbers of money for that program, reducing it from 129 voluntary buyouts down to 85. So I'm hoping that I would love to see something brought forward that is expanding the programs to reach more people, and that we have some adjustments perhaps in some of the other areas of what's been proposed, so that we're making sure that it's the public that's not taking on the burden of reductions in these in these changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on item number 4 on the administrative agenda? Okay, I see no further speakers. We'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell, seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion, commissioners?
I have a question.
Commissioner Pendergrass, you're recognized.
Can you just respond maybe on a few of the comments, or just for people that's listening that's concerned maybe if they misheard something that was just said?
Yes, sir, I will try to.
As far as the limitations and what this is already federally set up, but anyway, if you want to respond to some of those comments.
Yes, sir, I will try to clarify some of those items. On the change in the mortgage terms, so the way the plan reads right now is if you accept assistance, you have a 20-year mortgage on your property. You're not paying any interest during that time, but there's also no lien forgiveness. So if you were to turn around and sell that property, you'd be responsible for repaying the entire amount of the assistance. All we're saying here is, starting in year 6, 6.67% of that lien will be forgiven annually. So it actually helps the homeowner. It doesn't place any additional burden on them. With respect to the per unit subsidy going from 200 to 250,000, that would indeed lower the number of units that could be built if the maximum subsidy were hit for every project. We don't expect that to be the case. We're simply increasing that amount because that's what developers have shown us will be required in some projects to get the units built. And if the units never get built, we're not helping anybody. So it's just trying to help provide affordable housing. And then I forget a couple of the other comments, but I'm happy to try to answer.
As far as the zoning aspect of the green space, that'll be a separate topic. They'll go through the individual zoning based upon the uses of the property. Correct?
Yes, sir, it certainly would, and it would have to be a public use that property is going to be used for. And if it ever contemplated any kind of development, it has to meet all of the new floodplain requirements that FEMA has promulgated.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Pendergrass, any further questions or comments? Okay, I see no further questions or comments. Are there any objections to the motion? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, please introduce item number 5, Mr. Harner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to amend the 2024 state legislative agenda to include Little Pine Island Bridge request, and I'd like to ask Mr. Salyer to present the item.
Commissioners, earlier this year, you approved moving forward with Little Pine Island Bridge replacement. That project is currently in design phase. FDOT has recently come back to the designers requiring additional use of anti-corrosive steel. That's a good thing, but it is a lot more costly. So our team is currently in the process of trying to scope that additional cost. We think it's somewhere close to $2 million, but they're working that out. What we're asking for is to amend our legislative agenda so that we can go to our legislators and ask them to cover the increased cost above the $4.17 million that the county's already matching.
Okay, great. Commissioners, any questions or comments on this one?
I'll move the item.
Commissioner Ruane makes a motion for approval, second from Commissioner Greenwell. Any further comments or questions then for the staff before we go to public comment? Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask the public to, if anybody has come to speak on item number 5, the Little Pine Island Bridge. Okay, I see no speakers, so we'll come back to the board. Any final discussion on that? I see no final discussion. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Please introduce item 6, Mr. Harner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to award a contract for turf repair and restoration at Kelly Road and Harlem Heights Soccer Fields. I'd like to ask Mr. Young to address the item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is to award the contract to JSM Services for Kelly Road and Harlem Heights Soccer Fields turf restoration, which sustained damages from Hurricane Ian, for the total amount of $2,477,102. The contract consists of removal and disposal of existing soil, turf, irrigation system, tilling the soil, grading, and leveling all the planned surfaces before installing a new irrigation system, topsoil, and new turf.
Very good. Any questions? Mr. Young, I had a question. Just can you talk a little bit about your communication plan, working with any youth leagues that were using the fields, and how you're communicating with them about any schedule changes or anything that's necessary?
Yeah, we've been keeping them notified about the changes and the work that can be done, because the salt tolerance of the fields currently is going to be damaging the field. We have to take off the top grass, the dirt, remove everything else. And we're going to try to work with them. We're in discussion whether to do the whole thing at once or whether do the one half and then the other half later. So we're going to get with the contractor to figure out how we can move forward with it.
Okay, but we'll make every effort to try and accommodate the youth leagues, or make sure they have an alternate place to play, something like that?
We're going to try to work with them, yes, sir.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Any further questions, commissioners, on this? All right. Thank you, Mr. Young. At this time, I'd like to call for a public comment. Does anybody wish to speak on item number 6, the Kelly Road and Harlem Heights soccer fields restoration? Okay, I see no speakers, so we'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
Good item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass. Second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any discussion on this item? Okay, I see no discussion. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Harner, please introduce item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve an interlocal agreement for use of school district facilities as emergency shelters. And I'd like to ask Mr. Avis to present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Benjamin Avis, Public Safety. This item was last revised in 2018 following Hurricane Irma. And the basis for this is a section in Chapter 252 of the Florida statutes that lays out the responsibility of public schools to provide shelter and transportation support during natural disasters. The item before you has 2 main revisions. The first revision better defines the relationship between the entities to strengthen our liability protections. And the second major revision is in response to a memorandum that was issued by the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and that is in regards to how the parties work together to seek reimbursement for the costs. FDEM's memorandum indicates that the county is the best applicant for those FEMA public assistance funds, and so this agreement now outlines that the county will be responsible for applying for the costs of public sheltering in public schools, while the actual physical damage caused by the storm or the event would be still the responsibility of the school district. And I did want to note that the school district, we were hoping would hear that item today as indicated on the agenda item. It did not make their agenda, but we expect that they'll hear it in the next 30 days. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, commissioners, at this time? Okay, I see none. Thank you, Mr. Davis. At this time, I'd like to call on the public. Has anyone come to speak on item number 7 on the administrative agenda? Okay, I see no speakers, so we'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll gladly move the item, sir.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, and the seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on this item? Okay, I see no discussion. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, and Mr. Hunter, please introduce item number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve the FDOT funding agreement for Sanibel Causeway and Matlacha Causeway Hurricane Ian repairs. Ultimately, this is a reappropriation of over $60 million for the existing projects.
Okay, commissioners, any questions on this item? Okay, I see no questions. At this time, has anyone come to speak in public comment on the Sanibel Causeway and Matlacha corridor item? Okay, I see no speakers, so we'll come back to the board. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll gladly move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane and the seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on this item? You know, the only discussion I'll add is just thank you to the entire team for, first of all, the amendment to bring on Matt Lachey as well, and just the coordination with the state to get this done. This was a heavy lift to get this kind of dollar amount appropriated from the state and this kind of help. And so we're grateful to our friends in the state legislature. Our delegation really came up big for us, and everybody at the state did. I mean, this was a massive hurricane, but the response was also equally massive, so we're grateful for that. All right, with that, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right. At this time, let's move to our public hearing agenda, and I'd like to recognize the County Attorney's Office.
Morning, Commissioners. David Halverson, County Attorney's Office. I have your first public hearing this morning. This item has been duly advertised, and I've provided the affidavit of publication to the clerk. This item is a request to consider the adoption of an ordinance creating the Mobile Manor Operation and Maintenance MSBU. Mobile Manor is a community located in North Fort Myers. The purpose of this unit is to provide for road maintenance, associated signage, common area lighting, street lights, and drainage within non-county maintained areas of the community. Formal petitions in favor of creating this unit were received from a majority of the property owners within the proposed boundary of the unit. And if there are any questions, staff's available.
Any questions for our team at this time, Commissioners? Okay, I see no questions. Thank you, Mr. Halverson. At this time, has anyone come to speak in the public hearing for the Mobile Manor O&M MSBU? Oh, yes, sir. Please come to the podium and just state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is John Horan. I'm the person who started this project at Mobile Manor, and I'd like to give you a little history. This subdivision was created in the 60s. It was never county approved, so the roads were never approved for maintenance by the county. For the next 30 years, the developers maintained the roads along with volunteers. In the 90s, the developers turned the property over to a new corporation, Mobile Manor Inc., that had been maintaining the roads off and on with volunteer assistance. About 5 years ago, there are 320 lots roughly in this subdivision. About 5 years ago, the board made a decision if there's no HOA, but there's a voluntary payment of $28 a month. People can choose to pay it. The board made a decision that if the number of payers dropped below 180, there would no longer be sufficient funds to maintain the roads. From that time, the number has decreased, and the reason is demographics. When I moved in 8 years ago, the vast majority of lots were owned by retirees. Now we have over a third owned by landlord corporations that are now renting these properties. Currently, we have around 115 people paying that voluntary fee, way below the threshold for road maintenance. The maintenance that we have now are volunteers filling potholes, but the roads are deteriorating. It is essential that a system be set up where every property owner pays the fair share to maintain the roads and the lights that everybody uses. And that was the purpose of getting this together. I'd like to point out that while we got the majority of the property owners to sign, we in fact got about 85% of those people that we contacted, that we could get a hold of by phone or in person, to sign. There was a large number because of the hurricane and because of other factors of people that we couldn't get a hold of. Almost everybody we contacted understood the roads had to be maintained. Those that didn't sign didn't want to pay for it. So that was the difference. And there's a correlation between those who didn't sign and those who don't pay the voluntary maintenance fee. So this is the situation we're faced with. My understanding is that we've complied with the ordinance in getting the majority of property owners, and I strongly urge you to approve this ordinance. It would be a big help. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Has anyone else come to speak in this 9:30 public hearing today on the Mobile Manor O&M MSBU? Okay, yes, please come forward. And when you reach the podium, if you'd state your name for the record.
Well, my name is Falkweir. I'm a resident of Mobile Manor. I also emailed to Jamel public comments for an email, which is more, it's on record somewhere. But I just wanted to say that in many public projects, they don't they don't look at the most cost-effective or different ways of doing things. In this particular project, I would like them to at least ask the questions of how to do a road repair using reheating the used asphalts and putting it back down with the rehydration and with some oil that goes, which is done in many other places, instead of just doing, fresh asphalt, or even using crushed waste tires to add up the bulk for the asphalt, just to ask the question for more cost effectiveness. We also have, and it says up there for lighting, the replacing lightings with LEDs, which is much better than the high sodium vapor lights. However, they're using more wattage for the LEDs, and it's all flat and it goes straight down. It doesn't provide any more light going to the next light pole between the stretch of road from light pole to light pole. The other ones, if they had gone with LEDs with the round bulbs, which only cost very little bit more than the old high pressure sodium vapor, but they don't, LCEC doesn't want to do that because that would reduce the cost of the electrical bill. So they put more light straight down, but not more luminance between the four. But this way they can charge the same amount and not reduce it by half. And then there's also for drainage. There's two drains that come into Mobile Manor from surging from the Caloosahatchee. If they could put a one-way hatch on those drains during storm surge and hurricanes, they could eliminate flooding by 5-foot flooding very easily. Just keep it one way so it goes out to Caloosahatchee and not the other way, and then they could pull a plug so that it could also continue with the tidal in and out when there isn't a hurricane. But it's just two little small access points for drainage that would cause a tremendous protection against flooding with a minimum effort. Then there's other drainage things where people have filled in the swells, which is a bad thing because they want patios, sheds, or whatnot. They could have underground boring for to restore those swells that are going for drainage in the community. That would help too, without digging the trench. We have precedents for this, that we have a new water system. They wanted to trench everything, but somebody did ask the question of why don't you go boring and save $500,000? And they said, well, yeah, we could do that. It's cheaper. But my point here is that we're not asking the questions to make it cost-effective things.
Time, sir.
I'm rambling on. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's in the email.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for your comments this morning. Please raise your hand if anybody else has come to speak on this item today. Last call. All right, I see no further speakers, so we'll come back to the board. Commissioners, do we have any questions, concerns, or discussion on this item? Just the one question, and I know the answer, but I wanted to be able to go ahead and get the information out. Mr. Harner, if somebody could just answer, this is a MSBU. Typically, we set up a board for the MSBUs where the citizens can actually provide feedback into how the money is used and spent and that kind of stuff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So very good. So we'll have that appointment. Those appointments would be open. The public could apply, people who live within the bounds of the MSBU, and then they could get appointed to that advisory committee to then help vet some of those issues. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
I'll move the item.
Commissioner Pendergrass makes a motion for approval, and Commissioner Greenwell makes a second. Do we have any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, folks, for your comments today. All right, let's move to, we completed the walk-ons and carryovers. So let's move to Commissioner items. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any items?
I do. I have two appointees. Reappointment, Joe.
We'll do appointments in just a second. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, we'll move to Commissioner items, though. Any items? No. None today? Okay.
None.
Commissioner Pendergrass has no items. Commissioner Sandelli. Commissioner Ruane, do you have any items?
Just one, obviously, bring you up to date on the visit to Tallahassee. We were one of 5 counties that had the opportunity to testify before the Resilient Committee. The Resilient Committee is going to be around for this year as well, dealing with resilient items. Not only Collier, Charlotte, Volusia, Flagler, but Lee was there. Staff did an excellent job putting together a video that really depicted the damage that we had and the damage that we continue to sustain. We brought up many particular items as well as bridges and street signs, but we also talked about traffic lights that were not necessarily identified in last year's funding. So wanted them to be aware of, appreciate all the help they've done. I don't know where we'd be without them, quite frankly, because it's really been the catalyst, and can't thank the delegation enough. But just think it was important to do that. I also had the privilege of being invited to Senator Albritton's swearing in. So I actually got him to be, watch him get sworn in, and those were festivities, so it was nice to be part of that. So that's my report, and that's all I have on the commissioner items.
Thank you for the report and your efforts to help make sure the delegation knows what we need, and the communication between them has just been fantastic. So thank you. Any further comments or questions on that? All right, commissioners, at this time I have 3 items to work through today. Item number 1, I wanted to ask for a motion today that the board would waive Administrative Code AC 1-3, Section 4, Rule 4.01. Basically, that's the rule that calls for the reorganization of the Board of County Commissioners, where we pick a new chairman on the 3rd Tuesday of every November. And then instead, let's hold that reorganization at the end of the meeting today. Our clerk is here, and he could conduct that at the end of the meeting today. The reason being, the reorganization would have fallen during the week of Thanksgiving. And so instead of doing that during the week of Thanksgiving, we just take care of that today at the end of the meeting. So would somebody make that motion today?
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Ruane. Is there any public comment on that item? Okay, I see no public comment. Any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Clerk, we'll do the reorganization right after public presentation of matters by citizens, if that's okay. All right, the second item I wanted to talk about was some parents have reached out to me with concerns about the American Library Association, and these are concerns that have now grown statewide and even nationwide. And earlier this week, the state of Florida has dropped their membership with the American Library Association. Multiple counties have also dropped their membership in the American Library Association. And so at this time, commissioners, I've been I looked into the concerns that the parents had, and as a parent myself, I'm very concerned about what appears to be pushing of an agenda on kids, a political agenda on kids. And I think, if this group ever gets back to just political neutrality and really starts to focus on libraries again, it's something that we could look at rejoining. But I would really ask for a motion today that we to stay with my own rules, we could direct the staff to create a blue sheet at the next meeting, or we could even just direct the staff today to go ahead and ask for a refund of our membership and to drop our membership from the American Library Association. It's at your pleasure.
I'll make a motion to move the item to...
Okay. So Commissioner Greenwell, you make a motion to move the item today? Okay.
I will second that. I think it's really great that you brought that up, and like yourself, got contacted by many parents, and it really just seems to be an agenda that is not consistent with where we're really going today. I hope and pray that we can come back to neutrality once, sometime in the future, but right now I can't support being part of this group at all.
Thanks, Commissioner Wayne.
That's something we have to also stress the staff that they don't, after next year, this is forever until we decide to rejoin, correct?
Correct.
Because otherwise it will, within a couple of years, they'll forget, and then we'll join back up again, so. They go through a procurement process and nobody won't catch it. So
I think that's a good.
Staff understands it doesn't come back up because it's like a renewal thing.
That's a great addition to the motion. So the motion would be to cancel our membership with the ALA, request a refund for the membership that we've already paid for this year, and then include that the staff should come back to the board before rejoining the organization. Is that your motion? So that's the motion from Commissioner Greenwell, and that's the second from Commissioner Ruane. All right, very good. At this time, let me go ahead and call for public comment. Does anybody wish to make public comment on this item? Okay, I'll get you right after Ms. Ellis. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Marcia Ellis for the record. As a lifelong reader and as someone who grew up in a rural community, I look forward every every month to the mobile bookmobile coming to my community. And I was a voracious reader. I really credit the free access of being able to seek out information on many topics available on the bookmobile or the public library or my library at school as being what has prepared me to be successful in school, successful in college and graduate school, postgraduate school, etc. I'm still a voracious reader. I still use the public library services. As a former school teacher, having the access to the library was a much defended topic as the trend to move more online and take control of those library spaces as multi-use spaces has eroded children's access to a wide variety of materials. And we all learn differently. Some of us learn online, and some of us benefit from the tactile experience of touching and interacting with a book. Restricting the access of the community, of children, of the populace to information through a library is not a good look. Okay? It's just not. There are mechanisms available that parents can pursue to take more control of the materials that their children are exposed to through proper supervision. This is so fundamental to who we are as a nation to support public access to library. And my taxes have gone up substantially. One of the things I take pride in is that some of that money is going out there to buy a book that a kid can then access and better themselves through reading it. It's such a personal wound to me that my county would pull away from supporting the American Library Association. Let me also say that I'm looking out here and I'm seeing a lot of gentlemen, and we know that school teachers, librarians tend to be, a lot of those are where the ladies are. And so I see this as a personal attack. So you're undermining the ability and the discretion of trained librarians to supervise the materials that are coming onto those shelves and the education of people who have pursued at their life's work to make this information available publicly. I find this an affront.
Ms. DiVigelli? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Christy DiVigelli here. It's my first time speaking to all of you. Thank you so much for your comments and for the motion that you bring to the table today. While I appreciate the person who came up here before me and her comments, I don't see removing ourselves as a county from from being members of the American Library Association the same as restricting access to the public libraries for children. The same access still exists as far as I'm aware. The only difference is that now you're choosing to protect children from radical ideologies that are pushed by a radical organization. And I would love to see the American Library Association turn around and change their ways. And I do hope that one day they do that. But until they do, I appreciate each and every one of you for taking our children's safety into account, and that being the very first thing on your minds. So I support this motion today, and I thank you all for making it.
Thank you for your comments. Does anybody else wish to speak in public comment on this item? Okay, we'll come back to the board. Commissioners, any discussion? Commissioner
I
Pendergrass?
just want to say this clarification for people watching. We have one of the best library systems in the state of Florida. It's a very well-funded library system, and it's open to everyone. This is about paying $2,000 a year to an organization that we do not support their ideology. So this is not about restricting books or restricting people access to the bookmobile or the libraries. This is about paying an organization that's out of state so they could fund their own beliefs, and that's what we're doing. That's not using your tax dollars to pay for that. That's what we're doing. So The libraries are still open. You can still get access to the books. We're not stopping anybody from reading books.
Commissioner Pendergrass, thank you so much for those clarifying comments. I mean, perhaps the first speaker misunderstood. I'm absolutely not asking for any restriction of access to the library. This has nothing to do with library hours or who can go to the library or where they could go. This is simply just saying I don't want to pay a membership to a club that we definitely don't agree with, that I believe the majority of folks who pay the taxes in Lee County don't agree with right now. And someday, if they ever got back to political neutrality, we could join that association again. But right now, you know, I have a lot of parents that are really concerned, and a lot of moms who are really concerned, and 100% of those moms were women who were very concerned. So this is not an attack on any group of people or anybody like that. So thank you very much. Any further comments?
Well stated, gentlemen.
At this time, then, we'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections? I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And then the final item that I had on my commissioner items today, and I appreciate having an opportunity to talk with you all about this, is the bathrooms at Lynn Hall Park. So I was home the other day and watched the news, and I saw a story that mentioned that commissioners had voted to not rebuild the bathrooms on Lynn Hall Park. And I just wanted to kind of clearly get a chance to talk on the record about how we all feel about building back permanent bathrooms on Lynn Hall Park. And I can tell you, and I believe I know where y'all will be too, but I can tell you, for me, having the bathrooms at Lynn Hall Park as a parent has always been extremely valuable to me. And I know that the trailers are serving a good purpose right now as a temporary solution, but it is my very strong desire to see us rebuild permanent bathrooms at Lynn Hall Park. It's also my very strong desire to see us rebuild that pier in a manner as quickly as we could see it rebuilt as well. And so just wanted to have that conversation. Maybe perhaps we could make a statement on the record that we do intend to build back permanent bathrooms at Lynn Hall Park someday, but I open the floor to you, commissioners. Commissioner Sandelli, maybe, or?
Sure. Let Commissioner Sandelli go.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that we've gone through a tough year, and it's a process in building back, whether it's the restrooms, whether it's the pier, whether the other things. Those things need to happen in a way that is manageable, meets the needs. Separate subject, but I know, for instance, we were increasing cleaning of some of the temporary porta potties down there to meet the demand, particularly during the season and stuff. So, yeah, I think that the interim piece has been well served, but I think building back makes sense. Now that we have some guidelines and it fits in with a lot of the other issues that we have to address in the spending money and stuff. So,
Commissioner Ruane, do you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing up the item. I certainly support building back the bathrooms, and we've done that. Obviously, my tenure before here, we were certainly offering bathrooms on Sanibel, and they were certainly essential. So I can't imagine us not doing the same thing. I think it's essential we do so, and there's many different funding mechanisms to make sure we do that and achieve that. It's a long-term investment. It's one we've had. I don't see how we go backwards. We need to obviously continue to put everything back the way it was.
Any further comments?
I agree, and I think the last conversation we had, Dave, about this a while back, the bathrooms, we're waiting on the town right now, the beach, and also as far as the pier goes, we were going to wait for the Times Square issue to be fixed, but now we're going to continue moving forward with our current project as it was before and go with those permitting for building the pier back.
Sure.
But I do support the bathroom build back as soon as possible and hopefully more resilient, bigger, and taller, so it will still be there in the future as we're going to do throughout Lee County. You're going to see everything built back even taller than what it is now, so that's a good thing.
Mr. Harner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, yes, we are waiting on FEMA on both those items.
Okay.
We will be moving forward and bringing something back to the board before we do anything, but yes, the pier is a priority. I think that'll be coming first before Lynn Hall, but Lynn Hall should follow soon after. We would have to work with the town on permitting issues, but we'll address that as we move forward and based on the direction by the board.
So you're saying we're waiting on FEMA for replacement costs?
Correct. The replacement costs and resiliency dollars as well, yes.
Could we go ahead, are we still already working ahead of that process as far as design and start applying for the permitting for that so we don't have to wait for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, Commissioner, we have to wait. We can't move that process forward in order to receive the funds. So as soon as we receive the funds, then we can move forward.
Follow-up question, and thanks. I appreciate the clarification, Mr. County Manager. I know they'll make an approval. Do you anticipate what type of time frame from when they make an approval to actually giving us the dollars necessary to do it? Is there a significant delay in that?
We can, Commissioner, we can move as soon as we have approval, and that does not mean we have to have the dollars in our hands. As soon as we have approval, we can move.
That's where I was going. Once we have an approval, we have different mechanisms, TDC, whatever, and we can certainly get reimbursed. I don't want to delay this.
As far as like money goes, could we use TDC funds for this, as we've done in the past for other things, because we work with those, so anything public access, we use TDCs. We're going to replace bathrooms throughout the county with TDC funds. So could we start that process with those funds, then get reimbursed from FEMA later? I'm just trying to expedite the process. We have the trailers out there.
Can I make a statement, I think, to clarify? If you,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what I was trying to get at is that we're going to look for FEMA approval. I just want to make sure, once we got FEMA approval, that it wasn't 60 or 90 days before we got the funds. And if we're going to have 60 or 90 days for that, if we could utilize our funding internally while we wait for the, I don't want to delay another 90 days because we haven't gotten the check theoretically.
I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, on the question, can we use TDT dollars and get reimbursed? No, we cannot. We have to wait on approval from FEMA, and then we can move forward. But they won't reimburse us if we use TDT dollars.
So some of these things that I hear that FEMA won't let us do seem nonsensical to me. Like, is there a way that we can look at this and work on it here? I mean, I can't believe that the Federal Emergency Management Agency of the United States of America says, if you use a funding source that is bed tax dollars, we're not going to reimburse you. Like, that doesn't seem like a rule that makes sense. Like, is there a way we could maybe take a deeper dive into that and find out if there's a workaround there?
Okay, let me get some clarification. Let me ask Mr. Salyer to answer that question.
Yeah.
Commissioner, we may be giving the county manager information that isn't answering your question. I mean, we could cash flow the project with TDT, but we do need FEMA approval for the project itself. What we'll do is we're actually working with our federal lobbyist right now on some of the issues that you had brought to the fore a little while ago. We'll add this to the mix, see what we can.
Is there a FEMA representative still in town?
Yes.
There is. Could we get that FEMA representative to come talk to us at a future meeting so that we could tell them how important this is to us?
Yes.
Yeah, because that'd be great. I mean, look, it just, again, it doesn't make, some of the things that I hear that FEMA won't let us do or is dragging their feet on, like, just does not make sense to me, because I don't understand why that helps America. You know what I mean? We're town, we're a county, and talking about it, the town of Fort Myers Beach, nailed by a hurricane. We just want to build back some bathrooms. That's what we're looking for. We don't want to put back anything crazy, just something that's a little more resilient than what was there before. We could cash flow it. Can you give us approval? I mean, that's as simple as it is. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
My only questions, honestly, were, I know how important the funding, the approval is. I just, having just gotten $100 million today from, the Department of Emergency Management to cash flow items, I just wanted to, once we had the approval, I didn't want to necessarily wait for rebuilding the bathrooms. And I knew that we had funds available that we could utilize. So I'm not trying to break the rules, but I don't want to see us wait a day longer. Once we get a yes, I'd like us to move forward with that and try to expedite this. That's where I was going with the situation. But thank you for all your help.
Any further questions on that? Okay. So Mr. Hunter, do you want us to make a motion to give you official direction to build back the permanent bathroom structures at Lynn Hall Park?
Yes, to do our best effort to do this.
Would somebody make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Sandelli and a second from Commissioner Ruane. Okay, any further discussion on that item? Okay, Commissioner Sandelli.
I do want to say something on behalf of FEMA. They have been a great partner and a valuable partner in all of this. And so while we're talking about an issue that's very close to us now, I do want to thank them for the work they've done and being a partner and stuff like this. I understand your frustration because the approval process takes time, and time is a delay, and that's what makes everybody understanding. But we're very unique, Barrier Island. We have certain needs, and I hope that the meeting will surface those needs more.
I appreciate those comments, and thank you. Yeah, it goes without saying that FEMA has been an extremely valuable partner. However, when you reach situations like this, I just need a little more clarification. So, all right, let me go ahead. Since we've got an official motion, does anybody wish to speak in public comment on that item? Okay, Mr. Ballard, come on forward.
Danny Ballard for the record. I understand not being able to use funds that have been granted to us to do this because of FEMA, but I guess it would go back, every organization around does it. Why couldn't you make a line item budget adjustment, do the thing, then you didn't use grant money to do it. You were using local tax dollars to do it, and I think FEMA would still reimburse the money. I think that's something that might need to be looked at also.
Thanks for your comments, Mr. Ballard. Anybody else want to speak on this item related to the Lynn Hall bathrooms? Okay, I see no further speakers, so we'll close public comment at this time. Back to the board. Any further discussion? All right, I see no further discussion. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Sandelli, and thank you, commissioners, for the discussion today. I appreciate that. All right, at this time, we will move to commissioner appointments. Commissioner Greenwell, please share your appointments with us.
Chairman, thank you. As you can tell, I was pretty excited to get this done early. But I tend to jump the gun right there. Anyway, yes, I have a reappointment, Joe Ryder, to the Board Adjustments and Appeals Committee. I also have another reappointment, Christy Knight, to the Conservation Land Acquisition and Stewardship Committee. That's it.
And Commissioner, I might have misspoken too, so that might be my fault. So we have a motion from Commissioner Greenwell and a second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Pendergrass?
I have one reappointment, Robbie Rostor, to the IDA, Industrial Development Authority.
Second. Motion from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Ruane. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Sandelli, any? Commissioner Ruane?
I have two. I have two underneath Conservation and Land Acquisition, Karen Andrus and Christopher Robin, and then on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, I have Bernard McGovern.
Okay, so a motion from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. Commissioners, I would need a motion and a second on these. I have a couple new appointments and several reappointments. The new appointments are, I'd like to appoint Nicholas Grant to the Disaster Advisory Council and Randy Chris to the Charter Review Commission.
Move the item.
Okay, so I have a motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass and a second from Commissioner Greenwell. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? No objection. Motion carries unanimously. And then I have 4 reappointments. I'd like to reappoint John Paul to the Conservation, Land Acquisition, and Stewardship Committee. Wayne Kirkwood, I'd like to reappoint him to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Richard Losey, I'd like to reappoint him to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. And Scott Carter, I'd like to reappoint to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
Move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Ruane. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, Commissioners, very much. At this time, we'll move to County Manager items. Mr. Harner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no items today.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. County Attorney?
He doesn't have any either.
I bet he does. No worries. All right, so that concludes County Manager and County Attorney items. At this time, we'll turn to public presentation of matters by citizens. This is your time to talk on anything that was not on the agenda today. Does anybody wish to speak today? Okay, going once, going twice. All right, I see no comments under public presentation of matters by citizens. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Lee County Clerk of Courts, Kevin Carnes, for the reorganization of the Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Carnes, it's all yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. How are we doing today? It's an honor to serve you all in the capacity of ex officio member to the Clerk of the Board of County Commissioners. My purpose here today is to facilitate a vote on a new chairman, as you all know. The process is relatively short and painless, so we'll get right to it. We'll make nominations from the floor. Please remember that nominations do not need a second. We'll close nominations and do a voice vote, and then we'll get to the end. We'll turn over the meeting to the new chairman once elected. So with that said, we'll take nominations from the floor.
I'll nominate Commissioner Mike Greenwell as chairman.
Do we have any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Thank you. Nominations are now closed. We'll go voice vote from my right to your left. Commissioner Ruane, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Sandelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Hammond?
Aye.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Aye.
And Commissioner Greenwell?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. The meeting is yours.
Congrats.
Mr. Chair, you can move forward with elections for vice chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Clerk, for being here this morning. It's an honor to serve this board. I would like to thank my colleagues for the opportunity to be the chairman. Commissioner Hammond, you're going to be a tough act to follow. They call you Hollywood for a reason. So. And at this time, do we have a nomination for vice chair?
All right, Commissioner Wing.
I'll move we close nominations.
All right, we need a voice vote, so I'll call out, we need Commissioner Pendergrass.
Aye.
Commissioner Sendelli. Aye. Commissioner Hammond.
Aye.
Commissioner Rain.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. It passes unanimously. Congratulations, Vice Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Vice Chairman, would you like to say a few words?
Listen, Brian's always a tough act to follow, and quite frankly, he and Cecil were great when I sat in your chair and helped me through this process. It's certainly different, to say the least, but I thank you all. It's been an honor to work with you all, and I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, sir.
I just want to take a moment to say, first of all, thank you for everything that you all did to support Lee County this year and the kind words that you shared about me. Thank you very much. I'm very humbled by your comments and your kindness. But I believe that all of us were put in place for a time such as this. I mean, this was a year where we were called upon to respond to the third costliest hurricane in the history of the United States on behalf of the residents who put us here. And every one of you answered the call, and it was a true privilege to be able to serve as chair this year. I knew there was not a single time when I got a chance to go speak for the board that you wouldn't be backing me up, and so thank you for the work that you did this year on behalf of the people of Lee County.
Well done. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for your leadership, and it all starts here, and that's what happens here throughout the county with all our employees, between the county attorney's office, the county, all the administration, those employees out there making sure our direction and are providing great service to the community, and we all definitely deserve that. So thank you.
Amen. Any other comments?
When I was in the Navy, we all had a call sign, and my wife and I were watching TV, and the chairman was the former chairman was up there, and I said, God, he is so good. I said, he needs a new call sign, and it's going to be Hollywood, and stuff like this, and I thought maybe he would take offense to that. And he texted me back, he said, I'll be wingman anytime. Second thing is, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, he was watching Facebook, and he was coaching a baseball team, and I said, you know, we have a former Red Sox Hall of Famer. He goes, I know. He said, and I have an autograph from him when I was 7 years old. So I shared that with the chairman this morning. He goes, how old is this guy? He's married, he's got kids now. So congratulations in many ways.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Sendelli. There's no workshop this afternoon, so if there's no other business before us, we are adjourned.
Thank you.